Okay, warm welcome everybody. I'm Karima. I'm the European coordinator of the United Religions Initiative, URI, and I'm your Zoom host. It has been an amazing journey on the Baraza and URI Europe webinars. We have gone from New Zealand to Italy and from Syria to Russia and to so many places. So it is wonderful. Today we'll have 1 hour together with Professor Dr. Nargis Nirula from Tajikistan, teaching in Moscow. I'll give you some technical information. So we'd like to ask you to mute yourself for a better sound quality and for the recording. And of course, please use the chat function to introduce yourself right where you are calling in from, and share information about yourself, about your organization, maybe your contact details and your website, whatever you like to share. We'll have a talk first and then a question and answers. So then, of course, we'll use the unmute and you can ask your questions or again in the chat. So last but not least, we invite you to share any feedback. What we've been doing is asking two things. One thing that you appreciate about today's webinars and one thing you are going to do as a consequence or learn or do as an activity as a consequence. So we'll ask you again towards the end of the webinar and we'll invite you to share that in the chat. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Marianne.
Okay, thank you, Karima. Hello, I'm Marianne Harling. Before I have the chance to introduce you to our speaker of today, I want to thank Riaz Rabat and the Baraza for having organized this wonderful series of lectures by Zoom in cooperation with URI Europe. Today, we have the last talk, but I'm so much convinced by the format that I hope we will continue in the future. I am one of the 3 elected members from Europe on URI's Global Council. One is elected for maximum 3 years, no, 8 years. And my election period will end in 2022. On one side, I feel it as a pity, because this engagement gave me the opportunity to make friends all over the world and to learn a lot about other religions, some of which before I never have heard about. On the other hand, I wish for the many young people in Europe to have the chance to make these experiences too. My engagement for URI then will remain in Europe, where I work also at the board of URI Europe and at URI Germany, and I'm running my own cooperation circle called Intercultural Circle Bonn. URI is a network of interfaith organizations and groups. We have over 1,000 member organizations in more than 100 countries. I think it is now about 130. We like to welcome new people and new groups to our global family and to support each other. Any organization or group can join us if you have at least 7 members from at least 3 different religions or world views. So it's my pleasure now to welcome our dear URI friend, Professor Nagis Nurulla-Khodzhaeva from the University of Moscow. Coming from a well-known family in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, an area where since centuries, via the Silk Road, people of different cultures and religions, from east to west, from north to south, exchanged not only their goods, but also their knowledge and their wisdom. Nargis Nirula is predestinated to teach Oriental studies and philosophy and philosophy by nature. Just a moment, es tut mir leid. Ach, good. Excuse me, please. By nature. And I love how she titled her lecture about resilience, resilience in our pandemic time, and my hamsoya, these are the neighbours. Hearing the other with the ears of the heart. Dear Nagis, I kindly ask you to start.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Wow. You sure you wanted me to start just because it was so good to listen to you? So
I'm so sorry for the interruption.
Wonderful presentation, wonderful talk. So we're just so pleased to hear you. So from my side, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Entschuldigung, ich bin
opportunity to be here, to be with you, and probably to share. But I don't think that it would be my lecture. There is no lecture, just because we got together. That's the main point, and probably we'll try to install this kind of communicative circle. So we'll talk to each other. That would be useful to all of us. That's the point. The way to sit in front of the screen and listen to one person, that's sometimes too much, because we just 2 hours ago we had a big lecture from our ambassador to Tajikistan in Great Britain, and now again. So I don't want to repeat this role, and let's talk to each other. That would be right. And in order to stimulate our talk, so probably I'll share my screen. And it's said that disabled, just because host is host. Could you please, as a host, somebody can give me permission to share my screen?
You are now a co-host and can share.
Okay, thank you very much. Here we are. Okay, wonderful. So here we are. Because I'm more philosopher, but actually I graduated from historical faculty of Tajikistan National University. But then my thesis, my scientific thesis, was more on philosophical side. So I'm kind of between interdisciplinary approach. For me, it's a more logical. That's why probably I won't talk more about history. You can find it plenty of information if you wanted to talk about history in general. But today we'll talk about more philosophical approach towards today's situation. For me, it's just probably, I have to admit that I'm just honored to be here. It's not just because simple words. Honored because URI, for me, it's the first organization who actually explained me what does it mean to be inter-religious person who just make this connection between different religions. And it's made me think about it more and more. That's why we discovered, we discovered ourselves in different countries, for instance, in Korea, when we traveled to with URI, when we wanted to have the discussion about, interreligious dialogue with them, and suddenly, and later on when we had this kind of talk already in Europe. So that's impulse probably make me think about that. It is definitely very important for us to be connected, to be connected and understand each other more. And particularly in today's situation, because COVID-19 just push us toward just kind of into our homes and put very complicated question in front of researchers. Are we capable of overcoming the barrier of exclusion that suddenly, are we capable to remember? And who knows if we remember, is it right way of remembering the truth? So this kind of multi-layered questions, very complicated question, and its very formulation entails probably uncertainty. From this point, do we understand resilience? In the last year, if you just Google the word resilience, particularly when you just Google in the book, you find plenty of books, plenty of literature about resilience. What does it mean, how to work with it, and how we can understand with this. I think, to me, that would be right if we could start from other side. Here we are. That's a very kind of Sufi picture. It's a possible way of remembering, to me, because remembering, it's about art of listening, what Sufis called sama. It's an Arabic word. There is a kind of double mysticism in sama, because one can listen with both, with ears and heart. So the heart has an ear and it reflects a voice, sometimes only kind of intonation of the singing Quran, or even movement or gesture or rhyme, and how the world and everything could contribute to the spiritual uplift of Sufi. And Sufi began to spin. That's a kind of interesting movement and interesting way of probably of thinking about are we capable to listen to each other? I think it's complex, right? Too complex. Because most of us who's got together, we've got university background. Will you agree or not? We've got approximately same university program everywhere. Tajikistan, Germany, any other country, Bulgaria, any other country, we've got approximately same list of people who study, particularly Europeans, mainly. And we've got the kind of very same approach toward reality, right? Because we have studied and we have clear understanding of esoteric, eternal, and exoteric, external realities of life. That's normal, that's for sure. We've got used to it. But I want to try to go a different way. And with your help, we'll probably find together some kind of middle way out of this kind of constant separation. Constant separation that might bring us to the understanding of today's different life, particularly pandemic, yes, and post-pandemic stage of today's life. And in terms of understanding, I probably might involve very untypical actors. Can you hear? That's music. That's a very less traditional actors for this kind of talk. But we will have from time to time music. Sorry? It's very far away, don't worry, I will talk. Yes. You don't need to listen, it's a kind of background of our talk, simply. Because it's a music of my grandfather. He was establisher of professional music in Tajikistan. Tajikistan and its capital of Tajikistan, Dushanbe. Dushanbe, it's if you translate the word Dushanbe, it's a Monday. So I'm from Monday City. I was born in Monday City. In our Monday City, we've got Museum of Musical Culture. I'll talk about hamsoya a bit later, no worries. So, but before going further, I wanted to show you this picture. If you heard this name, Anne-Marie Schimmel, wonderful expert on Sufism, outstanding, remarkable. So in 2000, in June 2000, we were honored to have her in our museum of Musical Culture. And it was a seminar. And that's, sorry for this picture, it was from newspaper, only thing that I found. So it was a seminar. We involved people from ambassador of Iran, very good, remarkably good musicians, and it was so good atmosphere. It was organized by Professor Munira Shahidi, very good seminar. I remember it very good just because it was so inspired, so kind of good spirit. And I remember the story that Anna-Marie Schimmel shared with us.
And from Canada also.
Oh.
Sorry? So, sorry, is it to me question? Okay. Anna-Marie Schimmel shared one story with us. She said, probably because she was in Museum of Musical Culture, she said one story that she translated from Persian herself. She said, once Master Jalaluddin Rumi said, music is a creaking of the gates of paradise. Whereupon one of stupid idiots remarked, I do not like the sound of creaking gates, he said. And Maulana answered, you hear the doors when they are being closed, but I hear them when they are opening. That's about music from Jalaluddin Rumi's side. And from other side, we would need somebody else. We would need you. And in this case, I wanted you to be involved in today's talk because you are my virtual neighbors today. All of us were just sitting in front of the screen and we virtual neighbors. If you want it, if you accept this kind of status, in that case, you are my hamsoya. Hamsoya in Tajik, it means ham, together. Soya, it's a shadow. So we share one shadow because we're hamsoya. So I want you to this kind of to be together and to have one shadow. That's kind of normal way of again thinking about each other, because shadow might be very different, and then we'll talk about this later. Our current secondary status will probably make us think that this kind of neighborly talk, it's a kind of deconstruction of presence, because we don't sit face to face with each other. That's complicated, that's too, yes, pity. But still, if we continue this idea that we deconstruct presence together, so we might create something like community without community. That's an Islamic concept. And where I am you and where hamsoya. Because we've got same shadow, same values, same inspiration, same way of thinking sometimes. If not, still we're hamsoya because we want to find compromise. That's the way how actually hamsoya do, because they have one shadow. That's another hero of today's story, not just simply hamsoya, but Sufi hamsoya. The person who actually comment or just make some comments and make some involvement from Sufi side. It might be again some kind of trick, but might be interesting again. So let's go further. So here we are. Our life, do we want to not? It's already more than 2,000 years. Our life constructs on very Aristotelian choice. Aristotelian choice, it's Aristotelian logic would be right to say, because Aristotle said law excluded middle. It doesn't have middle. It should be yes or no. Okay, for 2000 years, we already kind of follow this logic. Okay, black and white, turn on, turn off. That's our logic. Aristotelian logic has assumed that a statement must be wholly true or false, with no in between, because it will not possible to be and not to be in the same thing, said Aristotle. Wow, okay, we got used to it, right? It's a normal way. It's easy, by the way. It's much easier when you just simply follow Aristotelian logic, black and white. In that case, resilience, if we again ask about resilience, okay, it might be yes or no, resilience. However, it would be very hard actually to say about, particularly in pandemic time, because pandemic shows that resilience, we cannot define the resilience. That's it, because it's not a thing. It's not a just simply one thing. It's a process. Process, if it's process, it has to have middle. Aristotle said no middle. Okay, no middle, too complicated. But we need to think about how to, again, to go further, to go without this. But to go further, I again wanted to remind you about hamsoya, because Tajikistan, it's one of the country, it's a Persian-speaking country. It's not a clear Persian, it's one of the dialect of Persian language. And it means that we do understand Iranians and we do understand Afghans people. They understand us or not, it's another question. But anyway, so here I've got a couple of few things that, again, to understand our logic, Tajik logic. Because, for instance, we accept hamsoya, you already know hamsoya, we've got other words that again have this together, ham. For instance, hamroh, united by road. Hamdil, solidarity. It means together, we connect it with heart, hamdili. Okay, hamrang, united by color. Hamdard, united by pain. Okay, every time we have this word ham, togetherness. So that's the thing that might help us understand that in all those words, including hamsoya, we've got resilience, because it's united. We are together. We together share something. We together have something to share, to have. So, and you probably understand how long and kind of meticulously the I was separated from other people to feel to be hamdil, to have this solidarity feeling. So in that case, we need to have something like theory of this togetherness. Other way, how we can explain what does it mean, togetherness? Two sides or combination of sides? In that case, I wanted to just to remind you that we've got this initiative from Baraza side, and one of the main kind of intention of Barazas, intentionally or not intentionally, to unite us. In this kind of unification or togetherness, we'll need this kind of theory. And if we have people from Spain, I don't think that we have people from Spain, but if we do, I might remind you one person who just was Spanish, so to say. Not from today's Spain, but from Al-Andalus, from Muslim Spain, Ibn Arabi. So from Valencian Ibn Arabi actually proposed something that might us help. He proposed this word, barzak. Barzak mentioned in Quran couple of times. It's a Arabic word, means isthmus or barrier, or place in between things and sides. Okay, that's kind of interesting conception. But if we apply Balzac to the modern matrix, we could illustrate and underline contradiction to the mentioned westernized Aristotelian logic, because there is no logic. We can't actually have, in that case, Aristotelian logic. We need first explain. In that case, probably the most interesting thing of Balzac, it's if you just look around, if you see shadow, if you can find shadow, just look on the shadow, not in the shadow itself, look on the border of shadow. Okay? Border of shadow, that's Balzac. I can show you a picture of beautiful Balzac. For instance, this one. Can you see shadow? It's shadows around 47 meters tall minaret for a column from Bukhara, built in 1127. Again, just because it's another shadow, but we need to look on the border of the shadow. In pointing on the shadow of the minarets, but yes, on the shadow of these minarets, on these borders of the shadow, Sufi presents a Balzac as a paradoxical guarantor of unity, as it binds the pulses sunlight and a form of reflecting the sun. You might say it's too poetical. It's a poetical, and but from other side, you are very right. It is poetical, and from this point, we need to involve somebody else who can explain more about it. And in this case, we might involve Jalaluddin Rumi from Konya. People say that he was from Konya, but according to the latest researchers, he was born somewhere in between Afghanistan, Tajikistan, traveled extensively, but in settling in Konya, modern day Turkey. But in our case, geography is involved in a kind of lesser extent, because we talk about Mavlana Jalaluddin Rumi, who said to nabini barkhor kaf zadan gushi dil boyad naki gushi badan. Maybe you don't hear the tree leaves clapping time. Close the ears on your heart and listen with the ears of your heart. That's about Jalaluddin Rumi, and it's about this kind of circulation between different ears, body and heart, give an understanding that object and subject of knowledge are changeable. We can't just simply separate them. And it's about intuitional unity of individual, social and macro level, and it's about togetherness. Here we again came to this point. And I wanted you to show the word of Theodor Adorno. The task of art today is to bring chaos into order. Now we're in this situation that we need more art, more artistic view of today's complicated situation, probably too complicated to present and to talk. But anyway, let's go further. Because I'm from Central Asia, and probably to give you some ideas about Central Asia, and if you have some kind of relations to Islam, probably you heard the name, you heard about city Bukhara. Imam al-Bukhari just in case of, yes, you heard about it. But I want to talk about Bukhara because Bukhara, it's a kind of spiritual capital of Central Asia, we might say. It's a city that actually united so much within. And the pride of Bukhara is a 7 holy cities, sites associated with Sufism in Bukhara, particularly with Naqshbandi Sufi. I won't talk about Naqshbandi now, but in Bukhara you can find beautiful Naqshbandi gardens, for instance, or memorials, complexes connected to Naqshbandia. Just very recently, when we travel in Bukhara, in one of the places, I've seen local craftsman communities. Those communities those communities were kind of communities of weavers and people who just making some kind of decoration, some kind of national style things, like jacket, beautiful jacket, by the way. The way how they work, actually, they demonstrated to me very kind of positive social attitudes towards this kind of involvement, their own involvement. And with their involvement, I just saw this kind of demonstration of Sufi formula. It's knowledge and practice, ilm va amal in Persian. Knowledge and practice. Sufi knows that knowledge without practice is insanity, and practice without knowledge is vanity. Again, there's a kind of connection between them. There can be just simply one side without another. The formula that you can see runs counter to the current teaching university instructions. The last one is usually based on a pyramid of knowledge. Instead of working directly with practical examples, teacher gives a more kind of abstract theory of a certain kind from which all practical examples can be derived. But here we might say that enlightenment are not bound by religion. So it's not just only about Muslim people, that knowledge and practice should be connected. Just because if you're enough enlightened, it means that you are not bound by religion, said Sufi hamsoya. Cool, I like it. And the way how it's presented, I thought it would be right to show you this picture. This is a picture of our museum. Museum where we have this circular, we have, except museum itself, we've got International Cultural Foundation, and it's devoted to creativity of my grandfather, Ziodolo Shahidi. The music we already heard at the very beginning, very kind of small fragment. That's about our museum and the way how we thought and how we believe that the enlightened are not bound by religion. And in our museum, it is demonstrated, we hope. And going further, probably some kind of vision about hamsoya and about Sufi. You might agree with my idea that Sufi and philosophers are hamsoya because they are again linked to each other. This couple told that the preservation of humanity through contemplation and love is our common responsibility. If it's common, would be right to remember that the word insan from Arabic, it's actually known all people of Eurasia. The word means human. And if we translate the word insan from scientific point of view, it's coming from uns. Uns, it means friendliness, sociability. Sorry. And the word, oh, sorry, it's too early, but anyway, okay. The word we have in this in this word of friendliness, we've got resilience again, and we've got togetherness again in word insan. The word human, from other side, is coming from Latin, and it's rooted to earth, ground. It can be traced to the Proto-Indo-European root, earth. I can't read it. So I'm sure for all hamsoya, it's biblical. Dust thou art, and to dust thou must return, right? That's a very kind of biblical and a very, again, that we can understand. In Dushanbe, Tajikistan, it is poetically biblical, since the circle of human life audibly presented by Omar Khayyam with the question. If you can read it, I went last night into potter shop. 1,000 pots I see there, noisy and silent, when suddenly one of the pot raised a cry. Where is the pot maker and pot buyer and pot seller? Ku koza garu, koza haru, koza fresh. That's again continuation of story that we have in the world human. However, another continuation might be interesting for you to discover. Again, in Dushanbe, we remember that we have a musical extension of this Khayyam's question. It's Tolib Shahidi ballet Rubai of Omar Khayyam. Ballet thundered in the 80s last century throughout the vast union of 15 republics. And if you're interested, I can send you YouTube so you can see fragment of ballet, beautiful ballet, by the way. And you can see pots in the film, pots breaks and breaks again and again during the ballet performance. And it's the same fragile pot molded by divine potter. That's again this kind of continuation that we have. And I really like to say again words of Adorno, that the task of art today is to bring chaos into order. That's so to say that that's it. Halas for today. That's my very short story about Tajikistan and my way of resilience, and you as hamsoya. Thank you very much. And I'm ready to talk, to our talk, to hamsoya talk.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Nargis, dear Nargis, for sharing your Tajik history, culture a little bit, for being, I find you're like model of universal person, academic, but also at the same time artistic, philosophical, and also spiritual,
Yes,
inner and outer. So it's you're giving us a wonderful example of overcoming all these barriers that you've, or could be barriers, or black and white that you've been mentioning.
Yeah.
So I find it inspiring, because I believe the world is like that. There is no black and white. There is so many shades of gray or different colors in
Absolutely.
between.
Absolutely.
And I think also that for unity, we need the mind and we also need the heart to connect to each other. So I would love to sit in your museum once and have a chat and the tea there. Hopefully it will be possible.
Yes.
And I know that you also organize amazing artistic festivals with music groups and dance and all of that. So it would be wonderful to have a chance to also give a floor to that or somehow interact on that.
Absolutely. We have it. Yes, we have very often the different kind of musical performances around that we invite people from abroad to come to museum and perform. And plus, as an example of, again, interconnection that might be connect different sides of the world, I might bring as an example opera this time. Opera of my grandfather. That's about this time about India and Central Asia, about Indian dancer and a singer from Central Asia. Beautiful love, beautiful opera, and again, story that's sort of say about interreligious dialogue, because from one side it's a Buddhism, from other Hinduism, from other side it's Islam. So again, this kind of connection underline that we all connected. Do we want or not? We need this connection in order to feel humanity, first of all.
And also your talk reminded me of a saying that a modern worldview, including fundamentalist worldviews, they are based on that incapacity to understand paradox, or there is different views and they might be both right. So there is so many shades.
So many shades.
And that allows coexistence as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is Marianne.
Yes.
When you want to say something in our neighborly chat, just unmute yourself and chime in.
Yes, Nargis, I really want to thank you very much for this opening the word for the in-between. And I think it is teaching our sensitivity to be aware also of the differences of the different shades. And for me, it's always a real gift to talk with you, to be with you. And it's always enriching. And I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariana.
and you gave me some memories also to my journey I had in Uzbekistan, and I was in Bukhara, and my greatest wish is once to go together with you to Bukhara.
Inshallah. Yeah, we will go.
We will see. With no corona.
We need to actually go, and we need to share. It's share the way the English word sharing. I really like, just because it's both sides. You can't just simply enrich somebody when you just not open to to being. Yes, otherwise the person cannot. Yes, there is again process that need to have two ways. Yes, track. Yeah, thank you very much, Mariana. It's always a pleasure to see you and pleasure to talk to you. And plus, you are the most kind of sort of very positive person.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Thank you. If we have any questions, you are very welcome.
If I thank you very much for your presentation. It's so rich. It's so rich, so inspiring, because it shows the fundamental values that are in spiritual traditions, and how to discover that can help you to understand better that each tradition is bringing new light, is bringing a new look to reality, and is helping to understand better, and is giving a joy to discover that our world, our reality is so rich, is so Yeah. And when I was thinking to one of my grandchildren, and his thesis was also all about embracing darkness, look also at the black side.
Uh-huh.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also your work, your presentation, I was thinking to the work, to the life and work of Thierry Verhelst and Edith Cizot, two persons who had culture and development. That was the name of their Stiftung, a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing just the work you were doing here, from different languages, from different traditions, reflect on terms as solidarity, proximity, enemy, and so on. And reflecting on words and traditions and what they will say and how they can bring, when you look from different sides, to deepen a concept. So your webinar is for me an example what we can do in one of our next meetings. I hope that we can meet again in the future and then sit together and then bring from different sides, so on certain words, on certain terms, how we look to it and how we feel it and how we understand it. So very inspiring. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to see you back.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Very hope to see face to face when, yes, all this over and we meet finally. Yeah. Somewhere.
Yeah, and in our group we have a little bit difficult time in our dialogue group, and that is linked with Corona, but it is also linked with evolution in the world, and because we have a very big and very strong Turkish community, and between Europe and Turkey, and between Islam and Christianism, tensions are rather to grow. So we have a lot of work to do, and but it is now difficult in Corona times. It is quite difficult to do it. But we have to continue. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is no choice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
You very much. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
And there is a question in the chat.
In the chat.
Yes, from a lady with a name in Cyrillic. So unfortunately, I cannot read it, but she asked, is there a possibility to enrich certain Western societies with some of the properties of the so-called Mahalla life? And I think Mahalla is different communities living next to each other in the same society, each with their properties and unique characteristics.
Yes, it is. Mahalla, it's about community, it's about living together, it's about, again, share traditions, values. It's a very kind of clear social life. It's sometimes I call it a culture of shame. It's still there, exist, because when you just go out, it means that people just look at you and probably might say, oh, okay, you are not properly dressed. You need to change. You need to be, again, you need to be part of this mahalla. You need to be part of this community in order to feel this communitarian spirit. It's important again. But from other side, when young people think that it's to share mahalla community, that's the most complicated thing now, because it's impossible to share when you just don't feel this. You need, first of all, get meaning of it. For instance, when you go to any other country, when you, for instance, feel this you have mahalla, but again, in order to have and continue to have it, you need to praise in this communitarian spirit, okay, or stimulate this communitarian spirit among your people. That's the point. Not just simply, you cannot take from one side and implement in another side. It's impossible. It's like, for instance, European did with states mechanism that happened to us, for instance. Now we have states in a very kind of European style of state. And again, it's not a very, again, appropriate to our culture, but we need to adapt because we don't have other choice. But to take community from one side and share community, that's too complicated to me, from my point. Sorry for if it's too complicated again, my explanation. Yes,
Pratakti would like to ask something or say something.
Yes, please.
Hi, Nargis.
Hi,
It was great to hear you as always. I've also had the pleasure of reading some of your work, so this was very nice to hear. My question, I guess, was how do you see Sufism within Islam? And then how does, because Sufism sits slightly uneasily between the traditional Sunni Shia Islam as well. And then how does that then get translated to interfaith in terms of Christianity and Islam, because Islam is not one thing and Christianity is also not one thing. So how do you, I feel like what you're talking about, it comes from there, but it's also about Central Asia itself, about all the different elements that are hamsoya in the way that Central Asia operates and society operates. So Sufism has a role to play, but so Sufi thought has to be understood in that context. I think that's what you are trying to do, but I'm not sure that if an audience who's not familiar with that, would they be able to get that? So I guess that's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for raising this question, just because Sufism, it is, some people say that Sufism, it's more influenced by Christianity. Some experts say, no, it might be some kind of mixture of different kind of sides in order to have this projected, this kind of Sufism as a Sufism. But I think Sufism, it's Islam. It's first of all Islam. And it's definitely strong enough to declare that it's an Islamic way of looking on reality, on today's reality. But I don't think that present against Sufism from Central Asian side, just because phenomenon of Sufism, it's a kind of broadening the vision. It doesn't simply not stuck on geographical sense that we have. Because, for instance, just very recently, when we discuss about national divisions in Central Asia that happened to us, because we in Central Asia, we have 5 Central Asian republics. And from time to time, we just raise the question, why this territory belongs to that republics, particular, not to us. That's a normal way of, again, talking to each other. But for instance, in Central Asia, in Sufi way of looking on the issue of nationality that happened to be before, happened to be after Sufism. So it's a very kind of interesting interpretation that happened to be from Junaid's side, one of the great outstanding Sufi master, who said, when you're just looking on the glass of water and the glass itself effect on water, and then you don't see the water itself. It means that every time when you just look at the glass, you see, first of all, color of glass, but not color of water and not water itself. That's about, again, nationality issue. And I'm not saying that it's a very Central Asian approach toward the problem. If we enough to interpret it, Sufi values, again, it's up to us to adapt and to reach today's interpretation of today's situation or today's regime that happened, that we live in it. But
sorry. So I agree with you, and I agree that Sufism is broader. But I myself come from a Sikh background in India. I'm not Hindu, I'm from, and Sikhism is a combination of Sufi Islam and the Bhakti movement in Hinduism. So everything that I would do in a Sikh temple is very similar to what you would do in a dargah, in a Sufi dargah. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to only call it Islamic, as Islam is understood broadly. I think it's associated, but I think it's much bigger than that. And I think that's why it's important to talk about interfaith in this way, maybe. But you know, so those are.
We have this kind of anecdote, folks anecdote, that to one of the very famous Tajik hero came, who was Qazi that time, who was judge that time, came a couple of few people and said, we have an issue case, could you please help us? And when he listened, he said, yes, you're right. And another opponent said, oh, okay, so my issue, my case, this. And he looked at him and said, okay, you're right. And third person who was just listening to this kind of conversation, when they left, he said, hey, why did you say that he's right and that is right? It's impossible because they're absolutely opposite, yes, sides. And he said, yeah, you are right as well. The way how they interpreted and agreed that it might be this, that, and that way, it's again against of this Aristotelian logic that we got used to it. I think Islamic, but I don't think that it's not accepting or it's not actually ready to have other influence. That's the way how it is. And it's again, as Mariana said, that's about enriching only. Thank you very much.
So the time is running up, and I'd like to give us a close, and then people who have other obligations can leave, and if there is more, some can maybe stay for 5-10 minutes more. So once again, big thank you for the conversation. I also like the interfaith component I mentioned, but so it's been rich, it's been thought-provoking and involving us. And so thanks a lot, dear Nargis, and dear all friends, dear hamsoya.
Thank you very much.
So, and I would like to give the word to Riaz so that he can do an official closing and also explain about Baraza, which is similar to Barzakh, as we heard. And we'll hear what Baraza is, so he has a chance to explain that to us as well.
Thank you, Karima. Thank you, colleagues, for all attending today. I can definitely say we are Baraza and not Barzakh, that's for sure. We are definitely Baraza. I just want to reflect on Prajakti's comments as well. First of all, her question. I think the more we can question, the more that we can analyze, the more that we can reflect on practice, not only across religions, but also within our different religions, the more likelihood is that we will progress to a much more stronger and much more effective place. Our different religious and belief communities are not in isolation. They take, they share, they connect so much with one another. And the more that we can open our hearts and open our heads to learning from others, I think we will be better off as societies and as people. And Professor Nargis, thank you very much for your talk. What a great way to start the weekend, I should say. Wonderful. It really was very, very deep, very reflective, I would say. I think you've given, I think certainly myself and others, food for thought. There is a pattern here. We began these talks for World Interfaith Harmony Week as part of the United Nations with culture and music, with Syria. We now end it with culture and music with you. Yeah. So this is wonderful. It's a great way in which you have accidentally, I guess, closed our sessions as well. So this is wonderful. And who says music and interfaith can't connect? Of course they can. I will also say that my reflections on all of these talks, it's been wonderful to have had the United Nations online, We've had so many different countries, people from many countries speaking, many countries participating. And I feel proud that despite this global challenge that we all face, we have all managed to use technology to come together. And my regret, but it's also an ambition now, is that we then take this further, and when it is safe to do so, that we can meet in person. For me, nothing beats the human interaction, and your talk today, Professor Nargis, echoes that. It is about the human connection, and the more we do that, the better we will be. In terms of Baraza and who we are as an organization, so as Karima said, I am Riaz Ravat. I'm the Secretary General of Baraza, which is an independent international non-profit organization founded in 2017 in Munich in Germany. Baraza means council or meeting place in the Swahili language. A Baraza can be an informal meeting or an official council. It is a place where people from many different backgrounds meet to chat, exchange ideas, and to solve problems. Baraza's work is expanding all the time. We were responsible for the concept, planning, and delivery of the exhibition, Tolerance, Understanding, Coexistence, which is the Sultanate of Oman's message of Islam. This global initiative has been touring the world for more than 10 years. We've been present in 40 countries and have built up good relations with many individuals and organizations to promote an international mindset based on tolerance in all areas of culture, religion, and understanding among nations. Please do follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, which is www.baraza.ngo. You will be able to download a free interfaith resource for children, which I have here. It is our coloring book for kids, which is available in many different languages, something which we are very proud of. Baraza is a subscription membership organization, and we would be very pleased if you wish to consider joining us. If you do so, please do send us an email. I thank you for joining us today, but I also have the pleasure of thanking all of our colleagues, some who are not here, of course, today, for being with us on this journey as part of the United Nations World Interfaith Harmony Week. It's a great honor to be able to close the session on behalf of Baraza. And I also want to reflect my own personal thanks to colleagues at URI in Europe, of course, Karima, Angelina, Leila in particular. Thank you for all that you have done. You've been wonderful colleagues to work with, and I hope we can continue the learning and the sharing in the years to come. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Riaz, and thank you, everybody. It's been such a rich journey. And have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.